Hello, Assyria TV viewers. We are here today with Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush is a mixed martial artist who has a background in wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he is currently a UFC fighter. His first fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship was in 2014. And in the past 6 years, he has proven himself to be an outstanding athlete and competitor with 19 wins and only 4 losses and 1 draw. He is known throughout both the Assyrian and non-Assyrian community, and I must say, one of my favorite things, because I have two, one of my favorite things about Beneil is how humble and truly down-to-earth he is. So welcome, Beneil. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate all the kind words, and just thinking that it's been 6 years just in the UFC, it really puts it into perspective. I'm starting to feel a little bit old.
I think we can all agree with you there, right? Time really does fly. Okay, Beneil. So you actually have quite a fan base in the youth here in Sweden. And we actually have some questions from your supporters here that will come later. But for those who don't know you and are watching, can you tell us a little bit about where you come from, your background, and how you started with your career?
Well, I was born in Iran. I'm Assyrian Beneil from Urmia, basically, and came to America when I was 9 years old. I started doing sports in high school. I did a little bit of soccer, and when I turned 18, I started doing jiu-jitsu. And with no plans to become a fighter, I just started, and I really enjoyed what I was doing. In about a year to 2 years, I had my first professional fight. So it was like a snowball effect. I came in, did a couple of classes, fell in love with it, and then started showing up every day. And then every day that I showed up, something new would happen and something interesting would happen. And then it would get bigger and bigger. And it went from training once a day every day to training 2 times a day every day to competing in tournaments of jiu-jitsu to a professional fight, and then from professional fight into the UFC.
Okay, that's awesome. So you kind of fell into it.
Yeah, I originally my thought process was I'll go there, I'll get in shape, I'll stay in shape, because they were all telling me, my college friends who were a little bit older than me, they're like, oh yeah, when you go to college, you're gonna gain some weight, you get a little bit lazy because there's a lot of school, and you don't have a lot of time to exercise. And personally, I was never the type of guy who liked to go to the gym. I didn't really have fun. I would go to the gym because my friends were there. They wanted to lift weights or they want to go running. I would do it because my friends were there. But
Okay.
It wasn't really. It's not in my nature to do that stuff. Like if you.
Very interesting. I never would have thought that.
Yeah, people tell me that all the time. I think it has to do with how I was raised. I was born in Iran, and we did a lot of farming. With farming, you do things that help you progress. Like if you plant or whatever, you start to see growth, and so you water your plants, or you harvest, and you have your food. But like exercising, like just to exercise, was like, what's the point of this? Like I used to do this as a kid, like all day. Like why am I just doing this just to do this? So I think that's probably why I never felt any progress when I went to the gym. So it wasn't appealing to me.
Okay, that's interesting. That makes sense, though. I can see that. And I like the analogy with the farming. So I can see how that translates then to the fighting. Speaking of Iran, you said you were born in Urmi. No, you are from Gultapa, right?
Originally, I was born in Ahvaz, and then which is, I think, near Azerbaijan. But then I moved to Urmi, and I lived in Urmi most of my life.
Okay, can you tell us one of your favorite memories from growing up there?
Most of the time I spent with my friends in Jutapa, a small village, and we just played around. My fondest memories would be just spending time with my friends. We climbed a lot of trees, and we ate a lot of joza, which is, I think, chestnuts. And it's different. You eat them like, I go everywhere and you eat them, but they're dry. But once you get them off the tree, you get a knife, you crack it open, and then you peel it out, and your hands are all black, but it feels like you're eating the chestnut, but with butter, because they're so oily and delicious. And
Yep.
we would do that for hours. We would climb on our neighbor's rooftop, and we would do that for hours, and then we would get yelled at, and then we'd have to run away, and we spent a lot of time getting in trouble. Those would probably be some of my favorite memories.
That sounds like a wonderful childhood in that case. I think you did it right.
I think my childhood was very good. I worry about when I have kids. I worried about the TV and the phone and things like that. But
Oh,
hopefully I can have a little say in it, and I can just throw the phone away and the TV away, and everything will be better.
I think so. I think you'll be okay. Okay, switching gears a little bit, for our viewers who may not know much about mixed martial arts, can you tell us a little bit about that? What it entails and the different types
So,
of...
if you don't know mixed martial arts, think of it as fighting. You're trying to fight, but also you've spent your time learning how to wrestle. You've learned how to box. You've learned how to grab someone's neck and hold that neck until they basically tap, which is they submit and they give up. It's I would say the ultimate form of competition. That's what fighting is, and that's what mixed martial arts is. You know, you say you can put a ball through the hoop, or you can kick a ball further, or whatever the competition is. But then I can say, hey, but I can kick your butt. That's where that comes in. That's why I say it's the ultimate form of competition. When it comes, and if you think about it in reality, how do nations compete when they don't agree on something? They go to war. So that's what it is. Fighting is the ultimate form of competition. Now, if you can do it without malicious intent, then it becomes a martial art. It stops being fighting and it becomes a martial art. So your intentions are very important as well.
Okay, and I think that's very important to know, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because back in the day when I was first introduced to UFC and MMA was through my brothers many, many years ago. And I remember at the time, I mean, this was easy 15, 20 years ago, and I would be like, this is so violent. How can you guys watch this? This is crazy. But then, of course, I got older and I got into boxing and different things like that. And I started to understand it more as an art, as you said. So I think it's really, really important that you mentioned the intention that you have behind it, because it's not just going into the octagon and just beating the crap out of somebody.
Yeah,
There's actual art to it.
I think so. And you know, if you're young, because 15, 20 years ago, I would say 15 years ago, I saw it. I saw MMA, and it did, capture my heart quickly in terms of emotionally, because it's fighting, and you know, the stronger person gets to stay, and the stronger person wins, and all of that. But that's a short-term emotion. It's not gonna sustain you for a long time. Martial arts is a completely different thing. Martial arts is a discipline. It's a lifestyle. So yeah, for the people who want to get into this just because they like fighting, I'm gonna tell you, man, you're looking at an uphill battle. But if you're willing to get into this and understand that you got to be willing to put in time and effort and sacrifice into a detail of everything you do. You know, people see me in the octagon, they're like, oh, he did this so easy and he did that so easy. Honestly, there's nothing in there that I've done easy. I've practiced everything I've done in that octagon between thousands to a million times.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. What would you say is something that you love about MMA and something that you maybe don't love so much, and the biggest lesson that you've learned throughout your career?
All right. I like in MMA, one of my favorite things, I mean, it changes obviously if we're talking like striking. My favorite thing is making people miss. If I don't get hit, if I block a technique and I make you miss, and I'm able to counter, that's my favorite thing in striking. In grappling is just my favorite thing in grappling is to break someone's will. When we are, let's say we start in the beginning and we have the same level, same technique, and let's say our cardio is close and everything's really close, but one person just will not give up, and the person who doesn't give up eventually overwhelms the other person. That's one of my favorite feelings. I think of that as breaking someone. So that would be, those are some of the things that I really like. Things that I don't like in terms of competition, obviously cutting weight is one of those things I don't enjoy. I wish there was another way around it, but there isn't. So I don't overthink it. And then
Okay.
you had one more. I forgot what the last one was.
The biggest lesson you've learned in your career, which that might be a tough one to answer.
Actually, recently I've been thinking about this a lot, so it's perfect timing. The Let me see how I can put this in words so it makes sense, because in my head it makes sense. So I want to make sure it's
Absolutely. Take your time.
yeah, it's comprehensible. So all right, let's say it like this. I think this is this works. In the book of John, John 1, I believe it says God is love. Okay, think of that. So now think of love as sacrificial. I've had to pour in as much love as I could into this MMA, because I recognized there was a little bit of a period where I was struggling and I was getting bitter. And when I started to get bitter, I just showed up to practice and I left. I showed up to practice, I did whatever it was and did my thing and I left. And that was the period where I stopped growing. If you want to be a martial artist, if you want to be a fighter, actually, if you want to do anything in your life, you have to be able to pour love into it. And if you decide to pour love into something, no matter how broken, no matter how small, it will grow. And that's been the biggest lesson I think I've learned so far. When I rededicated myself to MMA and I just started to pour love into it, I had things that I was already very good at, and I had things that I was okay at. I said I'm going to redo all of it, even the good things I'm going to make better, and the bad things I'm going to take from bad to good. So, and that required. It's not a feeling. It's not like one of those emotional feelings where we're like, oh, I love you, blah blah blah. No, it's a sacrificial thing. It's one of those things where you put time in. I spent extra time making sure the bad things got better. I spent extra time making sure the good things were better. From my jab to my defense to my takedowns, I had to put more work into it. And saying just work and hustle and all that is good, but in reality, that's love. And that's what I did. I poured love back into the game.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. So love really is the answer in all different forms,
I
even
think
when
so.
it comes to this. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, we can say that the UFC is, I believe, the most popular and the largest MMA promotion company in the world. I personally don't know of any others.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. There are some people that would so like I know some of the, for example, the owner of ONE FC said, "Oh, we have a bigger market in Asia," and then the Bellator will say stuff, but in reality, most people that I know look at the UFC. I haven't met anyone that said, "Oh, this is bigger than the other." Maybe ONE FC does have a bigger market in Asia, but the UFC athletes are more recognized no matter what.
Okay. I mean, I would agree. As I said, I've never even heard of another one.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit how you got your start in the UFC because you started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Yeah.
correct? So it was a bit
So
of a shift.
yeah, so I was doing jujitsu, like I told you, because I just wanted to stay in shape, and then I started competing, and I was competing a lot in jujitsu. I won tournaments back to back, and my coaches started to notice. And one of my coaches said, "Hey, would you be interested in fighting MMA?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I just said it, just yes. He asked me a question, I just replied, "Yeah, sure." And then maybe a couple of weeks later, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, I got you a fight." And I was like, wait, what? I thought that was a rhetorical question. And so at first I'm like terrified because I got an MMA fight. But then I think to myself, okay, well, it's an amateur fight. No one's going to know. I'm going to fight and it's going to be over. And then I just say to him, okay, so what's the deal with it? He's and when is the fight? And he's like, okay, the fight's like in a month or two, or I want to say it was like a month and a half time I had, or a month time I had. And he says, you have to go do your medicals. I was like, medicals for an amateur fight? Back then, they didn't even have that. You would just show up to the show and you just fight. Medicals were only done for professional fights. I was like, why do I need medicals? He's like, well, because it's a professional fight. And that's when my heart sank. My heart sank, and I was like, hey, man, give me like a little bit of time. I'll call you back. I took a minute. I think I even took my dog for a walk that day, or my sister's dog, just because it was nighttime. I went out, came back, and I called them, and I just didn't want to sound like I was scared, because I don't want to sound like I'm scared. I'm trying to be a tough boy. I was 20 years old at the time, so I say yes, I'll take the fight.
Okay.
And a month later, I had my first professional fight, and I won split decision. It was a terrible fight, but it was one of those terrible fights where I said, "There's no way I can let my career end like this in MMA. I have to do this again."
And sorry, split decision. If you can just explain what that is for those who don't know.
Okay, so a split decision, think of it like this. There's 3 judges that decide who won the fight if it goes to a decision. If I don't finish the fight, or my opponent doesn't finish me, it goes, 3 judges decide. 1 judge had it for my opponent, and 2 judges had it for me. So if another judge had thought differently, I would have lost that fight. And
okay, so like by a hair, basically.
by a hair. That's as close as you get to a win. So it was a razor thin. I took it. I was grateful for the win, but I was so disappointed. I said, "There's no way I'm letting it end like this." And then that was it. Again, snowball effect. It just, things started rolling, and fighting started to happen all the time. I started fighting more MMA fights, and then 6 fights in, the UFC called for a short notice fight.
Wow. 6 fights in, that's very impressive. That is not a lot of fights.
It's not. I had less than 20 minutes inside the octagon or cage or whatever you wanted. So I didn't have a lot of experience, not a whole lot of experience. And then they called me for the UFC, and I know how it is with the UFC. If you don't say yes, if you don't say yes, they might not call you back for another, God knows how long. And on top of that, it was a short notice. So I didn't have a lot of experience, but I also was struggling to find fights in local areas because people didn't want to fight me anymore. They didn't want to risk messing up their record. So I just took the fight and I jumped on. I didn't have a lot of experience, but fortunately for me, I got to learn in the UFC, which I think is the best place to gain the experience, as long as you can, win and continue to improve. Because I don't know if people know this, but if you lose too many in the UFC, they kick you out.
Is that so? Interesting. Yeah. Okay, I can imagine that from their perspective.
Yeah, they want to have the best competitors, and if you have like 3-4 losses in a row, sometimes just 2 losses, and if you don't perform well, they kick you out.
Wow. You mentioned that that there was some fighters, you were having trouble finding local fights because fighters didn't want to compete with you and risk tarnishing their record. And I actually saw you fight in, I want to say it was Pomona. And again, this was a long time ago. And there was a big group of Assyrians. We all got together and we all came out together. And I don't remember how many seconds it took you, but it was like the fight was done like this.
Oh yeah, that was the fast one. A lot of people were mad at me for that. They were really mad at me because the fight was fast. They were like, "Well, couldn't you have at least gone a round or 2?" And I was like,
"Oh man, I didn't care. I loved it. I was like, whoa, that's awesome."
Yeah, I was fighting this like really yoked out black dude, and I'm like, man, this guy looks strong. He looks very physically strong, and we have a quick exchange of punches, and somehow I'm on my back. I don't think he hit me, but he actually got a takedown on me, and I was like, all right, right away. I thought I went to my jiu-jitsu. And another thing I forgot to mention about this guy, you know how I said people didn't want to mess up their records? He wasn't one of those people. He was 3-0 when he fought me, so I think I was like 4-0. So I only had 1 fight more than him. So he said yes. He was one of those people who actually said yes and showed up to the fight. So he had a unbeaten record. I had an unbeaten record. He was looking to go to, that's why I was so happy that fight was over, and it was over quick, because that dude came to fight, and it is what it is.
That was amazing. To me, as a spectator in the audience, I thought it was just amazing. So that has stuck in my mind for all these years, actually.
Thank you. I could use more fights like that. Just get in and get out.
Right? Get in, get out, get down to business and done. Right?
Done.
Um, so no doubt to compete at the level that you do, it requires an extreme amount of physical prowess. But can you tell us a little bit about the mental strength that it takes to prepare and to stay at the top of your game?
So there's two mental strains, I would say, mental or spiritual or however you want to look at it. One mental strain is the camp, going through the camp. My camp could be anywhere between 3 weeks to 15 weeks, and it's draining. I have to keep a certain.
Sorry, that's the preparation for the fight?
Yes, so we call them camps, the preparations for the fights. I'm always training, but when you have a fight, we call it a camp just to specify the time. And the difficult thing with the camp is 2 practices a day, and they're very focused practices, meaning we have goals for every practice, and the intensity is high, and your body starts to break down. And as your body starts to break down, you wonder, like, man, am I going to be able to make it to the fight? And should I take a day off or should I not? And questions like that start to pop into your head, and you're kind of always fighting yourself. And that's one of the battles. That's one of the mental battles that I have is figuring out, am I doing things right? Am I not? Am I pushing too hard? Am I not pushing hard enough? Those are things I have to figure out. And then the other one, which I think is probably even harder, is the week of the fight. The week of the fight is the weight cut. The weight cut's terrible. It's very hard. I go, I'm probably about 178 this morning, 180 this morning, and I'll be 155. So in kilos, I think I was 83 kilos, and I'll be about 70 kilos, I think. I might be a little bit off, but something like that. I walk around between 82, 83.
Okay, but sorry, that you have to get down those many pounds or kilos within those few weeks.
Yeah, and Friday I'll weigh in and I'll be 70 kilos or 155 pounds, and then Saturday I'll be ready to fight. And normally I'll weigh in at 55 pounds and I'll be back up to 170, 175 pounds, which is, again, 70 kilos back up to 77 to 70, 79 kilos. That's normally how it goes. That's really difficult. And then finally the day the fight comes. The day the fight comes, and I don't know why, and I'm not complaining about it anymore, but I have this strange feeling that my body has like fire under it. My skin's constantly on fire and it's constantly burning, and it doesn't really go away till it's time for the fight. So I always tell people, for me, fight time is kill or die. There's 2 ways it's going to happen. Either I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kill, or I'm going to come home on my shield. And so far, it's always been like that for me. And I think that's the mentality I have. So that's the feeling I have. I'm going to war, and because of that, it's very mentally straining. After a fight, I don't even celebrate because I'm just exhausted from the strain that I just went through. But yeah, those are the difficult parts. There's the long period of the camp where you're constantly battling yourself. There's the week of the cutting weight, and then finally the day of the fight, where it's just I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just this strange feeling where I'm just on fire.
Do you think that's nervousness?
It's beyond nervousness, because if it was nervous, like, I'm not, you speak to me on my day of my fight and I'll speak to you normal, everything's good. And obviously I'm a little bit more quiet than usual, but like, I can't pick up my phone and just go through my phone on the week of the day of my fight. I like, there's no pleasure in that. There's really nothing. I'll just sit there and I'll just wait. And I'll eat my food when I'm supposed to eat my food. I'll go to sleep. Even when I sleep, I can't tell if I'm really sleeping. I'll go to bed for like an hour, 45 minutes, take a nap, wake up, and it just, none of it feels like it's really taking place. The sleep doesn't feel like real sleep. The conversations don't feel like real conversations. It's
It's like,
beyond nervousness. And I used to hate it, but I've thought to myself, I'm only going to have this feeling so many times. Um, might as well, enjoy it as much as I can if I can enjoy it, and just kind of appreciate it for what it is.
that's wonderful. Okay, we are going to go to a question from one of your fans here in Sweden. You now have 5 straight wins, the last 2 of which were extremely talked about. How does it feel to have this type of recognition and popularity, for lack of a better word, that like everyone's talking about your wins? And do you feel like this is a proper start to your career, or maybe a new start?
Recognition isn't really my focus. I always think to myself when I compete, it's for the audience of one. If I'm truly trying to glorify God in what I do, I can't be thinking about others and how they look at me. That would be one thing. And as far as whether this is the start or it's not, man, this is a journey. It's a long journey. I've had some tough losses. I've had some wins. I started out well and whatever. I think you have to look at all of it. You can't just say, okay, this is the beginning now. This is the one. No, all of it has accumulated into this moment. And I am who I am because of all the things I've gone through, the wins, the losses, and the wins now. I wouldn't be so dominant in these last 2 fights like he mentioned or she mentioned. I'm not sure if it wasn't for the accumulation of the time period before. So I'm grateful for all of it, including the losses, and I'm just glad to be here. I'm not worried about all the other things.
Spoken like a true winner, Beneil, honestly.
Thank you.
Okay, another question from one of your fans here. You won your last match by a spinning back fist, which only 7 other fighters in UFC history have succeeded in doing. First, for those who don't know what a spinning back fist is, can you please explain that? And then second, what do you think it is that has made you such a remarkable fighter and like finisher?
All right, the spinning back fist, let me see if I can explain it. I'm going to get up.
Okay.
Because the best way to explain it, I think, is to just show it. Okay, you
Perfect.
can see me. You can't see my feet, but I'll try to kind of explain it. So this is my stance normally. I'm a lefty, so my left hand is in the back. This is my right hand. So this would be my jab hand. The way I did the spinning back fist was I faked the jab. I threw a very lazy jab for him to counter. And when he did try to counter it, from this jab, I step across to here. So my leg will go across, and then I'll spin and I'll hit here. Sorry, let me change levels a little bit right there. But I ended up hitting him with my forearm because I don't like to extend this completely because I've hurt my elbow before. Or if I completely bend it, I've actually elbowed my partners before and they had to get stitches. So
Okay.
It's one of those things where you have to be careful. So that's why I do the forearm. But I've done it so many times, it just happened in the fight as well. And then the second part of the question is, why do I think I'm being so dominant right now? Is that what it was?
No, it was, what do you think it is that has made you such a remarkable fighter and finisher, like to finish someone off in the octagon?
The finishes, man, I don't know, because in training, it's not like that. It's not like I'm just taking people out left and right in training. To be honest with you, I actually get my butt kicked on a regular basis in training because in MMA, we're a jack of all trades kind of situation. I wrestle, I do jiu-jitsu, and I do striking. In striking, I have training partners who only do striking, who are better strikers than me, so I get beat up by them. In wrestling, I have college wrestlers, high school wrestlers who only wrestle, and I have, man, 17, 16, and 18-year-old kids, anywhere between 16 to 20-year-olds, kicking my butt, and that's very humbling. And then jiu-jitsu, same thing. I still have my coach in jiu-jitsu who still beats me up. So I don't know how I'm getting all these finishes, but I can tell you this: in training, it's not like that. In training, is the opposite. I'm taking most of the beating. So I think what it is just because I'm willing to eat it out there. I'm able to dish it out inside the octagon.
Okay, that's very interesting. I wouldn't have imagined that, as you said, you get your ass kicked so much in the trainings. So is it that the finishes just come out when they do in the fight because you have trained so much? And like your
Yeah, I think part of it has to do with the fact that you know I train with such high level guys that when I go into the fight, and you can recognize the difference in level in about a couple of minutes or right away. And once you recognize the level, oh, you can take advantage of all the experience you've had with guys who have beat you up and kind of implement it into the game. I'm not really sure why it's working out so well lately, but I'm not complaining, and I don't plan on changing too much the game plan and what we've been working on. I'm just gonna make sure I get my butt kicked all the way till October 3rd for this next one.
Okay, awesome. Which perfect brings me into my next question. What is the next step for you?
So they have me lined up to fight Charles Oliveira, who is ranked number 6, I believe, in the world. And I just fought 2 weeks ago, and they called me right away for this. I believe he didn't have an opponent, so that's why I'm fighting. And if I can fight him, and if I beat him, I basically it could be number 6 or I could be number 5 in the world. It just depends on how the performance is.
Okay, so is that set in stone that that's happening? Because that was another question we got from your fans here. Because at some point it was apparently speculation.
I think the UFC still hasn't announced it, but I've
Okay.
seen plenty of media announce it, so I don't understand what's going on there. But yeah, I believe it's official. They've decided on it. I've signed a contract. I believe my opponent signed a contract. So on my part, at least, I believe it's official. Yes,
Okay, awesome. And you said that's October
3rd.
3rd. Okay. And then what would a win in that match mean for you in your career?
I don't try to overthink it. If I have a dominant performance, I'll probably be ranked number 6 or number 5. And if I'm ranked number 6 or number 5, I could possibly be 1 or 2 fights away from fighting for the belt. So I've been here before. It's not my first time. My goal is to just make sure I get back to where I get this fight, and I'll be back to where I was, but kind of be in the moment. Don't try to think about, oh, I just need one more fight and I'm fighting for the title, or I need 2 more or whatever. Just focus on this fight, enjoy the process, and as much as I can, get to the fight, have a dominant victory, spend my time with my family and things like that. If the fight brings me a title shot, or if the fight brings me a number 1 contender in like Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, or one of these guys, great. I'll be ready. I'm not too worried about it. I'll take whoever and go from there. I try not to overthink things. There's a joke always my pastor makes. It's make sure you be a Mary and not a Martha. Martha is the in scripture is the one that worries about every little detail. So, and Mary is just worshiping at the feet of Jesus. So my goal is to just be like Mary and not overthink everything. So I'm gonna be dominant in this fight and just see what happens after that.
I love that. That's great. Good luck to you in that fight, of course. We're all behind you.
Thank you.
Um,
I trust me. I know. I got 10,000 messages after this last fight. I deleted my social media because of it. Like I couldn't keep up. I felt so bad. I can't answer everybody. I was just like, all right,
I think
we're gonna chill out.
I think you need a social media manager, maybe, or like a social media intern or something.
So I deleted my social media, and my wife's like, "Oh, okay, I'll look over it, no problem." She did it for like 2 hours. I think she's like, "Okay, I'm done.
She's
I
like,
changed my
here's your
mind."
phone. I don't want it.
Yeah, she's like, "I'm deleting my social media too." I was like, "No, it's okay. You just don't answer, and we'll figure it out some other time." So
I,
right now, that's where I'm at.
I can only imagine. Okay, take us through a typical day in the life of when you are training in camp for a fight. Like how much sleep do you get? How much time do you spend fighting? What kind of food do you eat?
I'll give you an idea. Today's, I wouldn't say an easy day, but today's one of the lighter days of my week. Today, Monday, I just came from my practice, which was a striking practice. We focused on a lot of striking with my coach Rafael Cordero. He's my MMA head coach. And then now came home, resting a little bit, speaking with you guys. Then I plan on going to my strength and conditioning program. So I'll do my strength and conditioning about uh, 4 o'clock here, which is in like 2 hours, or 3 o'clock. I don't know. Whenever I get there, he's just like, all right, get to work. So I have that, and then I take it easy. On Tuesdays and Fridays, I have sparring where we'll do live sparring. Tuesdays will be small gloves. We don't focus on the hard punches, but more on grappling. Fridays, we have bigger gloves, less likely to get cut and less likely to break your nose and all that stuff. That's when we go harder. We punch much harder. So, like, if you look at my eyes, that's from Friday.
Okay.
Saturdays, I have probably my toughest day. I have these guys come in for a wrestling practice. I'll do some wrestling on Saturday, and then as soon as the wrestling practice is done, we'll recover, go shower, and we'll go straight to sprints. We'll sprint up this hill that's just miserable. We'll do anywhere between 15 to 30 sprints coming up. And then once we get to the top of the hill, which is 2 miles up, we'll
oh hell no.
We'll put our gloves on, and then we'll finish up the practice with about 20 minutes of light striking, and then we'll call it. And that's probably my toughest day, Saturday. It's one of those days where I still feel it till Monday.
I can imagine. When you're training, do you completely isolate yourself in terms of not going out and socializing and seeing friends and things like that? Or can you still have some semblance of a quote unquote normal or typical daily life?
I don't actually like the isolation. It can be good, but it just depends on your personality as well. For me, I actually do better with family and friends around. And on top of that, it's not like I drink. So when I go out, I'm just hanging out with my family. My biggest worry when I go out and hang out with family and friends is just don't eat too much. I have to be careful of what I'm eating. And I know it sounds crazy, but when my friends barbecue, they're very good at barbecue. So I'm always like, okay, I'm gonna eat a little bit, not too much, and then if I have to, I'll leave. Like, it gets that bad where I love food. It gets so bad sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave. I'm not doing well. I'm gonna go home and just drink water till I'm full.
You know what? That's a really great tactic. I'm gonna have to try that. Just leave.
Yeah, easier said than done. It's years of practice, and I'm still working on mastering it.
What would you say is your favorite Assyrian food? And do you think it's the amount of birghil or prache or bushala or kebab or whatever it is of the Syrian food that lends to you being such a good, strong fighter?
It's definitely a possibility. Mom makes chipta, a lot of chipta. I just ate some actually. I can if you need it, I could bring it over and show it to you guys. It looks so. But I eat a lot of chipta, a lot of dolma. If I had to pick what's my favorite, I'd probably pick. That's hard. That's hard. Do chada count? Are chada technically, are they considered like a meal, or is that like breakfast? It's a breakfast meal, right?
Kade, the one, well, you guys say chade because you're from, it's the sweet thing.
Yeah, it's like a circle, and then you cut it, and then you eat. You get some sweet tea, and you.
I mean, I would eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so you can count it as dinner.
Man, that might. Sheesh, this is hard. You know what?
Some of your favorites. Chipta, you said. Kade.
Chipta, dolma chalama. My mom makes a really good dolma chalama. Harissa, she makes good harissa. And chad. Those are Those are the ones that come to mind. I don't want to sit down and talk about food because I just ate
I'm
Mexican
sorry.
food
I'm
here.
sorry. Okay. We're going to change the subject now. Okay,
Sure.
fair enough. Usually a fight company like UFC or others would use the flag of the country that you're from to represent you, the fighter. And this is, remember at the beginning I said I had two favorite things about you? Here's the second one. You use the Assyrian flag as your icon on the screen, showing where you're from during fights. And when your win is announced, you proudly wear the Assyrian flag on your shoulders. Did you encounter any problems because of that, seeing as where Assyria is not an officially recognized country?
So official problems I've had were, for example, the UFC's like, well, we use the Olympic code of conduct as far as flags goes, and the Assyrian flag is not there. So I've actually not been able to wear it anymore. I'm not able to wear it on me when I go out to fight. But they put it as the logo right beneath my picture. So that's a win in itself for in the UFC. I'm still trying to figure out with ESPN. ESPN has the Iranian flag there.
Uh-huh.
Those are the official problems I'm having. I would say, I mean, these aren't real problems. I get people messaging me like, hey, like, why don't you use an Iranian flag? And you're a traitor, blah 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 blah. I get messages like that, but those aren't real problems. Those are just guys upset, and that's all
Right.
it is. Yeah,
I mean,
I could care less.
it's I don't know if I'm going to find the right adjective for this right now, but it's a beyond amazing thing. I can speak for myself, and I'm sure many people who think like me in the community, to have such a world-renowned fighter, known around the world, being seen on television screens internationally, have the Assyrian flag when, obviously we're the indigenous people of the Middle East. However, now we are a minority. So to just have that representation for me and for so many is such a proud moment, because you could have chosen to put the Iranian flag, or you could have even chosen to have the American flag. What was it that made you choose the Assyrian flag?
I mean, the truth should be the most important thing, and the truth is that I'm Assyrian. I was, my mom speaks Assyrian, my father, my grandparents, all Assyrian. For me to carry any other flag would just not be the honest truth. And it's not like I've abandoned my heritage. In my home we still speak Assyrian, and so that's really it. It's just the truth. Am I Assyrian? I am. So I use the Assyrian flag. And as far as, if I couldn't use the Assyrian flag, if I had to pick a flag, I would definitely pick the U.S. flag. It's it would be very difficult for me to use the Iranian flag, especially because it's a Muslim flag. And no disrespect to my Muslim brothers, but we don't have the same beliefs. Their idea of who Jesus is and my idea of who Jesus is completely different. So that would be an issue for me.
I can understand that. Not every Assyrian who rises to fame chooses to represent the Assyrian nation and raise awareness about it as you do. Why do you use your platform to do that? And what does it mean to you to represent your people in this way?
the I mean, again, it's the truth. So I'm a big believer in doing what the truth is. You have to follow it, whatever the truth is. So that's one. Another thing would be, as far as why, man, it makes my mom happy. It makes my dad happy. It makes so many people, like 10,000 messages. Guess what? Like 8,000 of them are Assyrian. So like,
Absolutely.
to bring joy to people, that's one of the, to give is better to receive. So to have that, it's huge for me, and I appreciate the love that I'm getting. Maybe if I had a different flag, I would get more messages, but that would mean I'm not living in the truth, because again, I said earlier, I'm Assyrian. I was born in the country of Iran, but I am Assyrian. And so if I was to get a million messages because of a different flag that I don't truly represent, I'm lying, then I wouldn't feel good about representing that, and I wouldn't feel like it's the truth. So I think the truth, number one, the truth is the most important thing, and number two is the reception I've had putting out the truth out there, and the love that I've received. So I think those are two things that stand out. And then number three, I would actually like to discuss with all the people who have risen to in stature and in name, and kind of understand why they chose not to. I would really like to know their opinions and what happened with them before I just make a quick judgment. I don't like to judge people until I've spent a little bit of time in their shoes.
Absolutely. I agree with you about the first two things. And the third as well. I mean, as I said, a lot of people have not chosen to use their platform to represent their background and their nation. And I would also be very curious to understand why. But from me and from, as you said, thousands and thousands of Assyrians, we thank you and love you and are so proud of you for doing that, honestly.
I appreciate it and love you guys as well. And again, it's the truth. It's that simple.
That's awesome. Do you think there is something about being Assyrian that has lent to your success? And I would say, for example, our determination, our perseverance. These are all synonyms for stubbornness and being like hard-headed but very determined. Do you think your background had anything to do with your success in your career?
The stubbornness part, that really resonates with me, because my wife seems to say that to me every day. Why are you so stubborn? But let me think about this, because when I was a kid, all my Assyrian cousins and friends, like, all we ever did was fight. And I think that had a lot to do with it. And making sure you're the better fighter, you're the stronger fighter, and we would talk about it all the time. And I think that had a lot to do with it. I think the culture of just Assyrians being fighters, and even the little kids, we enjoyed fighting, and we talked about fighting, and we got in trouble for it a lot. So I think it does. I think being Assyrian had a lot to do with it, for me at least, because it wasn't, I had a great childhood, but in terms of getting trouble, it was always for fighting. And I don't know if I ever got in trouble for anything else except for that.
Whoever would have thought that you would have actually taken what you used to get in so much trouble for and actually turn it into a career and a way of life?
Man, I just had that talk with my mom. She before calling you guys, my mom was talking to me, and she's like, why couldn't you have been a doctor? I was like, Mom, if I was a doctor, you'd complain, why wasn't I a tennis player? If I was a tennis player, you'd be like, why weren't you a lawyer? If I was a lawyer, you'd be complaining, why weren't you a fighter? You should have been a fighter instead of sitting there on the desk writing all day. So you're not a real Assyrian, or something like that. If you let your mom take control of the conversation, it's always the grass is greener on the other side. So
and I think if it were up to our moms, then we would all literally, every single Assyrian child would be a doctor or lawyer or engineer. So
basically, and until you become a doctor or an engineer, and then they complain about you not doing something else. So this is personal experience I have. So I have my brother-in-law is a doctor, and my mom's always complaining about this and that. So it's I think my mom loves to have just conversations with me, and she knows when she complains about stuff, it's the easy way for her to get me into a conversation. So that, I think that's part of it. And
yeah,
and
she just likes to push your buttons just for fun.
exactly. And she just knew from the beginning, like, fighting, she tried to keep me away from fighting all the time, and so now it's become a joke between us. And yeah, I think my culture had a lot to do with fighting, I guess.
That's awesome. And absolutely, going back to what you said about Assyrians being such good fighters and competitors and warriors, it is in our blood and our DNA, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if I was a great fighter as a kid. I got beat up a lot, so I think that had to do with it. Actually, getting beat up was part of it, and because it activates that stubbornness.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it is in the blood. I think again, I think the ultimate form of competition is fighting. So it's in the blood, and fortunately for us, we have a little bit extra.
Yeah, absolutely. Most UFC fighters have, or most fighters in general have a nickname. And you are called sometimes the Assyrian Lion. Do you think officially, if you were to be called the Assyrian Lion or the Assyrian Warrior, what would you think of that?
I mean, Assyrian Lion. They've been calling me this now for like 7 years. So like, I don't mind. I don't mind it. It's nice. Uh, if you met me on a regular basis, I don't know if you would consider me a lion. You'd be like, he looks more like just a cat. He doesn't talk much or say much. But yeah, I like Assyrian Lion. I don't know if I've heard Assyrian Warrior too much, but I've heard
No, that
Assyrian
was
Lion a lot.
actually a suggestion, I think, from someone.
Oh,
Assyrian
it was a
Warrior.
suggestion.
Yeah.
I'll think about it. I've been trying to avoid nicknames for the life of me, because most people call me Benny. They can't say Beneil for some reason, and you can't
Right.
add another nickname.
Yeah,
But
I get
I think throughout the years, the Assyrian Lion has pretty much stuck in the Assyrian community.
it. Which was again from a fan. Okay, this is in Swedish, so just give me a second. I have to read it and translate it in my head as I say it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's tough.
So every year the UFC has a UFC gala, and your fans here in Sweden would like to know and would like you to promise us that when that event takes place in Stockholm, that you will be there so that we can come and support you and watch you fight and watch you win and get to meet you. And so yes, that was the final question that we had from our fans here.
Okay, I can't guarantee I'm going to fight in Sweden because the UFC kind of makes my schedule. But next time the UFC goes to Sweden, I will ask them to take me on because they take some fighters as like guest appearance or whatever. So if I'm not on the card as a fighter, I'll ask them to take me as a guest appearance or whatever it's called, and just spend some time in Sweden because I was actually supposed to go this year, and I was gonna do because my friend was gonna fight in London in March, right after my fight. So I fought, and then 2 weeks later he was going to fight. I was going to go to London, and we're gonna take care of his fight, and then I was gonna take that time and spend a couple of weeks in Europe and do a honeymoon with my wife. So I had plans to go to Denmark because I have family there. I was planning on going to Sweden. I want to go to Italy, just kind of go all over Europe, to just to spend some time. But like a day before I was about to fly to England, the UFC canceled the whole event because of COVID, and so
I was
that's why you didn't see me in Europe this year. But I actually had plans to go out there.
Okay, that's awesome. So the plan is still there. We just have to wait for COVID to kind of let the world be free.
Let us go.
Yeah, exactly. Let us out of this COVID prison. Thank you so much, Beneil, for joining us and for speaking with us. And as I said, you are, as far as your supporters are concerned, you are the Assyrian Warrior and the Assyrian Lion. We love and support you so much. And thank you for taking time out of your day and joining us.
No problem. It's my pleasure. Anytime I can do this, and if it brings joy to someone, it's a pleasure for me. I appreciate you guys.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. To our Assyria TV viewers, we would like to thank you as well for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Beneil Dariush and got to learn more about him and his career and his fights in the UFC, as well as get to know his wonderful, humble, and very proud Assyrian personality. Thank you very much. Good night.